So hello all again, welcome to the very interesting lecture. Okay, so in last lecture I think we have covered about the very introductory part of the generative AI. Okay, that what is basically the role of LLM engineer. Okay, what does the LLM engineer do and other things, right? In this section we are supposed to understand about the basic framework. Okay, the basic to advanced framework which is actually needed in order to make any generative AI application. See, first of all, why this framework is actually needed. Okay, whatever the things that I am going to teach today. Okay, so first of all I will be teaching the LangChain. Okay, I will tell each and everything about you, but before understanding this part, first of all you need to understand why are we actually learning this framework. Okay, why could not we just code and take use of any other LLM and build a generative AI application for our own enterprise? The problem is that first of all you need a very big team setup. Okay, just to write a very functional modular coding, just to encountering each logic which is actually commonly used in your, let's say, in your own enterprise. Okay, and the problem is that again you need to increase your bandwidth. Okay, you can not just simply rely on the large language model in order to make and build application in a production deadline. Okay, you need to use some kind of a framework which helps you to make this generative AI application, or which helps you in order to make any set of application, right, with the help of the framework like LangChain, Llama Index, right, and any other extra tool, okay, in the generative AI course, right? So that is going to help you a lot in order to like deliver the product very much smoothly. Okay, so that is why it is actually needed to understand this kind of a tool. Okay, so the first tool that we are supposed to understand today is basically the LangChain. Okay, and it is actually mostly used in a lot of generative AI framework. Okay, so you need to like use this because this is actually some of those prerequisite that one needs to actually understand this. Okay, so this is like a very common term. See, first of all, when you do coding, okay, so when you do coding, so what you will do, you will go and pick up your suitable coding language. Okay, then over that you wanted to make some project. Okay, and then you go from basic to medium to advanced level. Okay, and then eventually you start making this project, delivering this project, showcasing your project to your peers, to your team members. Okay, and then you will get the another project order and other things. Okay, based on the previous project that you have actually led before. Okay, so these things you have already like had a prerequisite before. Okay, that you need to learn some coding language, you need to know about the database, you need to know about the cloud, right? Each and everything helps you to become a good production application developer, right? Now when it comes to in order to build any product, okay, the inclusion of large language model is going to solve your problem more easily. When I say more easily, it means that with the inclusion of these LLM models, right, you may try to encounter each and every other problem which earlier it is used to be like used as a complex problem because you did not have any supervisor, right? You need to hire some good quality engineers just to take a look into your problem. Okay, just to apply their mind, just to come up with different solution. Now everything is getting flushed away with the one single large language model which is like heavily tuned on large set of data, and that is why it is actually like draining away the number of bandwidths from the industry, because these large language model are so capable that it can actually do a lot of tasks. It can actually train your model, it can do some kind of image detection, it can actually like train your entire pipeline, it can actually deploy it everything. So when it comes to training the model, then delivering the model to the customer, deploying it into the cloud source, even like managing the enterprise level customer, okay, even like managing your team requirement, all of these things, okay, all of this small chunk of component has been properly managed by the very big large language model running on some very big GPU based server owned by some good companies. Okay, some big tech companies. Okay, so the question is that rather than just because you had all the knowledge that you have accumulated so far, okay, if you are actually a data scientist, right, so you have accumulated, let's say you have, let's say, 5 to 6 years of experience. Okay, or even if you're, let's say, a fresher, okay, you have actually accumulated some kind of a knowledge, right? And with the help of, let's say, some other open source library, you try to build your product and you deliver to your customer, right? Now what if I tell you that all these things is easily replaced by a one single large language model, right? Then you might be thinking, or then you might worry that like where my talent comes, right? Where will my talent will going to further improve, or let's say that where will my talent is going to solve the issue, right? That is very important thing, right? So there, the knowledge of generative AI, the extra knowledge of generative AI, okay, or let's say the some spices of generative AI will help you a lot, right? Because other than knowing something, okay, if you try to like use as some kind of extra building block over the kind of tech stack, whichever tech stack you are, okay, either you are front end developer, back end developer, either ML engineer, either a deep learning or computer vision engineer, NLP engineer, anybody you are, okay, on top of it there has to be some building block in 2025, and that building block has to be a generative AI. Okay, and that is very common in a lot of the industry. That is why I'm actually focusing on these kind of framework, okay, that you need to learn this framework, okay, in order to excel in your own field, right? So the kind of framework that we are supposed to use is basically a LangChain. Okay, now let me tell you that what is basically a LangChain. Okay, so we are going to understand today LangChain, right? So what is basically this LangChain? Okay, so LangChain is actually developed by some person, right, who have actually like accumulated everything. Okay, let's say that who have properly designed this modular version code which can contain a lot more, let's say, subfolders or submodules. Okay, which contain a lot of submodules, let's say in classes. I will show you each and every code in the GitHub so that you don't have to worry. Okay, in classes there will be many different modules which is like manufactured, right, which is like manufactured to do some task, right? Now what kind of task it is? Okay, what kind of task it is basically developing? Okay, so LangChain is open source. Okay, LangChain is basically open source. Okay, which is like has a very huge bundle of code. Okay, these code is actually just made for you, just for catering you guys. Okay, so that you don't need to extra code it by yourself. Okay, so just understand the first part. The LangChain is basically a library. Okay, it is basically open source libraries who has actually like accumulated each and everything. Okay, each and everything, let's say the submodel, the classes, the model, the manufacturer, like each and every set of code which is actually needed in order to connect your problem statement with your large language model. Okay, so let's say that you have some problem. Okay, the problem can be anything. Okay, the problem is like, let's say that I need to make a system which can do automatic flight booking. Okay, so let's say that automatic flight booking. Okay, I need to make a system who is actually doing the automatic flight booking. Now this is the first problem which is coming into my domain. Okay, now what, as a developer, what will I do? I will always not go and pick up the very laborious set of approach. Okay, why? Because I need to have a lot of bandwidth. I don't want that. So what will I do? I need to use an LLM. Okay, I need to use some large language model. Okay, which is like basically easily able to help me to make the automatic flight booking system. Okay, so let's say that it will help as a helper. Okay, or let's say as an instructor or as a superior. Okay, so now as a developer, okay, as a developer, I am going to take use of this large language model, right? I am going to take the use of this large language model in order to build my application. Right? And what will my application will do? My application will simply like just have one user detail. Okay, that user is going to like simply just fill in their detail. Okay, either their credit card, either their age group, either their which date they want to like book the flight tickets. Okay, and what is their source, what is their destination, what is their city of arrival and everything. Okay, and it will automatically try to book the flight. Okay, and give the ticket return back into your mail. Okay, everything will be done. Okay, by simply using this large language model as an instructor. Okay, so this large language model will act as a supervisor who is going to supervise many different submodel, and they will going to like act accordingly in order to make and build your application, and you are just a user. Right now the question that you might occur that, okay, whosoever this my large language model is supervising, okay, where will I find that small agent? Okay, or like how do I actually build everything? Because in a storyline I have already told you that this thing is basically very much doable, right? But how do I actually like make all this architecture? Okay, there with the help of framework called LangChain. Okay, so I hope that you are actually like even 10 to 20% you are getting it, right? That what is basically LangChain. Or let me give you some other option. Let's suppose if you, let's say, suppose if a writer, or let's say you are in any creative field, okay, and you wanted to write some set of story, okay, and in the middle you think and like you got stuck. Okay, and like there is no phrase which is coming in your mind, you don't know that what should be the next story. Okay, or how should I like complete the next story? Then again you are supposed to use this large language model, so that which basically like give you a kind of response. Okay, while you at first you are actually giving us as an instruction that this is your problem, and in a response it is try to fulfill the entire story in a very creative way. In order to make this application, right, this LangChain will help you a lot. Okay, in order to say that what is LangChain, so LangChain is basically like an ecosystem. I would say it is basically an ecosystem. Ecosystem means what? So let's say that you just understand that it is just a planet Earth. Okay, it is just a planet Earth of the user, where like the species are actually living in this the planet of LangChain, okay, are basically the many different user. Okay, there are many AI agents, there are many large language model, there are many sub models, okay, developed by some other resources. So it is like basically all set of environment. Okay, it is basically containing all set of environment, it is basically containing all set of integration, some clouds and other thing. Okay, it is basically going to contain all set of things, all set of ingredients in order to make your application survive in this planet. You can understand this. Okay, planet called LangChain. Now you will get it, right? So if I just walk you through this one, right? So what is basically a LangChain, and what so far we are going to like we will be understanding this thing is that, first of all, in the LangChain, in the very first part, we are going to understand about the introduction of LangChain. Okay, that what is basically LangChain. Okay, the ecosystem, why we need it. Okay, and then we are going to understand about the setup and provider integration. Then the second thing is that we will going to learn about the agent after making any other application. Okay, then how do we basically like evaluate the application, evaluate our application. Okay, what should be the evaluation criteria? So we are going to understand these things. Then we are going to understand this core model and prompting. Okay, so if you are getting this very first time, don't stress yourself, I would say, because you are going to understand each and everything very easily, right? Then we will be understanding about the LangChain expression language. We will be going to understand how to actually like feed the memory, okay, so that whatever the conversation that we have done to our chatbot, to our application, okay, so they are going to remember. Okay, they are going to remember everything. So it is just like a human. Okay, so we are just going to feed every information, okay, and it should have a memory. So based on the past memory it has and the current conversation that the user is actually acting or supervising or doing a communication with our agent, the agent should be able to properly remember it and like giving our response back in a more humanized way. Okay, then memory management, then we are going to understand about the RAG. So for RAG there will be a separate class. Okay, because I don't want this course to just for the sake of fulfilling the course. Okay, I will not going to teach like that. I will be like going into the extra detail each and every part so that you would know the entire nuts and bolts of every scenario. Okay, so for RAG I will be taking the extra separate lecture, let's say 1 or 2 hours lectures just for just for RAG part. Okay, then we will going to understand about this production grade application, that how to build any set of application. Okay, so this will be our course catalog. Now let's understand about what is basically a LangChain. Okay, so LangChain is basically a framework for building the LLM powered application, and as I already told you, right, LLM powered application, large language model powered application. Now what does that mean? It can be anything. Let's say you are actually watching this video, okay, and let's say that if you want to build an application where whatever duration of classes that I am actually usually taking, let's say an average 1 to 2 hours of class, okay, you are given a task that build an application so that it will going to take the transcript from the video, okay, and then make a proper report out of it, so that you don't have to like visit my lecture again and again, because it will be very boring. Then what will you do? Okay, you're going to use, let's say, some any other AI agent, okay, and then you are going to connect it to the large language model. Okay, and you're going to instruct the large language model that whatever the things that I'm going to take, just offer as a report which contain all the transcript, all the visualization and each and everything. Okay, so that can easily be possible using a framework like LangChain. Okay, or let's say that if you're actually going to a doctor for a checkup, right, and let's say there is a long queue, right, so if you want to make an application so that which is going to give you a triggering mail that when your turn is going to occur, at which time like you should probably like reach at the doctor destination, so that you don't have to like wait in an entire queue. Okay, so that can also be like possible using the LLM powered application. Okay, see, the large language model is basically going to do more than 90% of the human task. Okay, and it is very like super useful for considering us as a human. So we are the most laziest creature in this planet. Okay, and the more degree of laziness we have, it means that in future there are more number of problems and opportunity that we have. Okay, and in order to tackle that opportunity, right, that can be easily solvable using this, with the inclusion of this big chunk of large language model. Okay, so in order to like make any set of application to tackle any set of problem, okay, you need to understand that what should be the middleman, okay, like what should be the entire ecosystem, so that I can basically solve this problem. Okay, so that ecosystem is basically a LangChain that someone has actually like coded, okay, the entire night and developed a set of module from which you can just try to use the Python import method just to use this framework to connect your problem statement with your large language model to tackle any set of problem. Now you will get it. Okay, So yeah, so this is very very important. Okay, the first part is this one, and the second part is like basically the ecosystem. Okay, that the kind of ecosystem is going to like provide us. Okay, so just understand that what is basically LangChain. Okay, LangSmith is basically used for debugging and the monitoring part. Okay, the LangServe where is basically you deploy your application, and then the LangGraph is basically like it's an agent orchestration where like after one agent to another agent to another agent you wanted to like orchestrate it properly, so you are supposed to use the LangGraph. Okay, so just understand that what are the ecosystem. So you basically understand about the LangChain theoretically. Okay, I have not come in the practical part. So LangChain you have understood it, right? Then it comes to ecosystem, that what are the attributes of, or what are the, let's say, the arms and legs of LangChain. So it's basically first is LangSmith. Okay, so LangSmith is basically where you will be whatever the application that you are going to make in future, right? So you need some proper debugging tool. Okay, so for that you need to use LangSmith, correct? Then in order to deploy your application you need to use LangServe. Okay, in order to, let's say, make a proper orchestration, okay, a proper pipeline of agent by agent. Okay, that first this agent is supposed to like do some other thing, the second agent is basically supposed to do some other task. Okay, and in a way, let's say that the second agent is basically depending upon the first agent, right? So it means that first agent has to be connected to the second agent, right? So for agent connectivity you are supposed to use this LangGraph, right? Then again, like which industries is basically used. So industries are actually using these things as a chatbot, okay, as a rack system, as an autonomous agent. I have already told you like the autonomous agent is what. So it's like a flight booking system, right? So let's say that if as a traveler your problem is that you always need to go to some, let's say, traveling website, right, just to check out the flight, then check the hotel, then confirm the checking detail, okay, and then at eventually you wanted to make a return ticket, each and everything. Okay, so now with the help of LangChain you would able to like make a different agent from it. Okay, different agent from this, and then you can properly like use to connect this agent in order to build your application from the very starting to till end. Okay, so don't worry, the more exciting it seems after hearing this, the more easy it is if you get the entire ecosystem of the LangChain, and I will going to walk you through each and every part of it. Okay, so don't worry about this. Yeah, and the other thing is like why is it actually needed? Because see, the first is raw LLM. Okay, the large language model is basically a stateless. When I say stateless, it means that it does not have any memory, right? Because it is basically transformer based model, right? It is basically used to generate something. Okay, I already told you that in order to make any generative build model, right? So we have a transformer model, we have a GAN model, generative adversarial network, and other model are there. Okay, in order to like to generate something, either a script, either an image, either to text, and other thing, right? And because these are a generative model, so these have no memory. Okay, this does not have, let's say, any memory. Okay, or let's say this does not have any retrieval or knowledge cutoff, because this may have lot of hallucination. That is why raw LLM are basically the stateless. Okay, that is why like here the human in loops comes into picture. Okay, like you as a human being, you are going to like surpass, because see, if all the task has been done by large language model, then why we need these kind of framework, right? That is the question, right? If any task, like even a flight booking system, if any task can easily be done by the large language model, then why like we human actually come into this domain? We don't need, right? But it is not like large language model is basically offer to solve and give you a good solutions, right? But it has some kind of a limitation as well, right? It does not have, let's say, memories. It is basically stateless. Okay, it do hallucinate a lot of time if not given a proper instruction, okay, as a system prompt. Okay, you will get everything. Okay, that is why this framework is basically needed, okay, in order to guide the LLM. Okay, so that with the help of, with the powerful LLM, it is going to solve this problem. Okay, so LLM is very very powerful, but at the same time it needs some kind of a guidance, okay, some human in the loop. Okay, and because of this, these frameworks is actually comes into picture. Okay, this entire ecosystem is actually comes into picture. Okay, so I hope you will get this. The other thing is like what are the core building block of, let's say, LangChain. Okay, now from here just start getting the keyword. Okay, because again my way of teaching is that just to aware you about these keywords, so that when I go to the coding and implementation part, you are going to understand each and every part surely. Okay, this much I can guarantee you. Okay, so till now what you have understood, till now you have understood about that what is basically a LangChain. Okay, what are its application. Okay, LangChain is basically a framework, okay, in order to connect the user with the large language model to build a many different set of applications, either in a chatbot system, either in a autonomous AI system, okay, or either in rack based system. Okay, so that you can actually going to serve this to the industry. Okay, and this in ecosystem has, let's say, LangSmith. Okay, LangSmith for, let's say, the monitoring and the debug part. Okay, then you have something called a LangServe for deploying all this application. Okay, and there is something called a LangGraph, okay, for connectivity between the different AI agents and everything. Okay, so you have understood about these things, right? Now again let's come to the another, which is like the core building block. Okay, now we are actually going deep inside this, like going deep inside the LangChain. Okay, so now from here just start catching the keywords. Okay, so you will going to like understand about the use case of entire keywords later when I show the implementation part. Just understand these things. Okay, so when I understand about the core building blocks, right? So what are basically the core building blocks? The first is basically a model prompting, and let's say LCEL, which means like LangChain expression language. Okay, let me write LangChain expression language, right? So it is basically the LangChain expression language. Now when I say, see, just understand this part. The first of all, you know that these are basically the large language model. Okay, large language model, I already told you in the previous classes that there are so many different companies who are actually come up with their own set of post-trained transformer architecture, giving it in the form of chatbot system, so that you go to the chat GPT and try to like generate something and other thing. Okay, so these is big companies are actually using this LLM and delivering it to the customer, to us as a chatbot system. They might have used the framework like LangChain in order to deliver us, so that we could actually, so that it has a lot of memory, it has a lot of context. Okay, when we go to the chat GPT, it has a memory, it has a context, it has a less hallucination. Okay, it has a prompting techniques, it has, let's say, different type of tokenization, token limits and other things. Okay, as a user, so that on our side we have a very less problem. Okay, so all these things, like, so like when it comes to the OpenAI, so they have actually come up with the chat GPT. When it comes to Google, they have come up with their own large language or vision language model, which is like Google Gemini. When it comes to Hugging Face, so it contains a huge set of different open source large language model. Okay, so these companies, right, so these companies are basically like swapped with one line. Okay, and that is basically, let's say, the prompt template. Okay, again, so in order to like guide the model, okay, in order to instruct the model, you need to give some prompt. Okay, so even like if you go to chat GPT, you can't just go and like talk like randomly. Okay, before that you can actually talk randomly and you will get a response also, but you will not get a response according to your desire. Okay, the very good practice is that first of all, just let the model know that for what purpose I am going to use it for. Okay, so that the model will like change its direction to that dimension. Okay, so that it could serve you with the better knowledge. Okay, I hope you're getting it right. So again, it needs a good prompt template. Okay, it needs a good prompt template from the user. Just understand the word prompt template. Okay, it is basically a template, it is basically a structured way of giving a prompt to instruct my large language model, so that my model could give the response really good. Okay, and all these things we will going to use the LangChain as a framework, okay, to do so. Okay, how good is it is, right? We are going to use LangChain as a framework to use prompt template to instruct the model, so that model will going to turn its direction into that knowledge dimension, so that it in future it would better serve the response with the exact generic precise knowledge. Okay, it will not going to like serve the knowledge randomly. Okay, it will not going to like serve it the knowledge. It's like talking to some person, some random person, but before talking you actually introduce yourself. Okay, that which area or what are your interests. Okay, so that if the random person actually knew some part of some of those keyword, okay, he will going to take interest in your conversation, right, in this way. So first of all, again, the prompt is there. Okay, then prompt is basically feed to the large language model. Prompt is basically feed to your large language model like chat GPT, your Gemini, your Llama, Cloud, Perplexity, all this model. Okay, you are going to feed this prompt model. I'll tell the implementation part, everything. For now just focus on this theory part. Okay, so that you are going to get the good set of response. Okay, and so in code you will going to see this chaining. Inside the chaining you are going to give the prompt, then there is a, this is basically the pipe. Okay, this is basically a pipe operator in Python. Okay, and then this is basically a large language model, and this is basically pipe, and this is basically structure output. Okay, structure output means like you are going to get a good set of response. Don't worry, like, see, first of all, I know that these things are very new to you. Okay, just understand the keyword, because I am going to tell these things 100 times in the later lecture. Okay, I'm just going to like aware you about these things. Okay, so these are basically like you have a large language, but you understand the agenda, right? So you have basically a large language model, and then you are supposed to use some kind of a prompt template. Okay, so that you can basically instruct the large language model, so that it will going to behave in your accordance, right? Then the third is basically the chain and memory. Okay, so again, because the large language model is, let's say, basically stateless, right, so you need to add some memory. Okay, but before that, what is chain? Okay, what is basically a chain, right? You can understand the chain in this way, that it is basically connecting your user question or user query or user prompt, okay, with your large language model. Because large language model is just a random, right? In order to make the connection, okay, you need to like connect it with the with chain. Okay, so in LangChain, so you need to use the chain as, so chain as a, let's say chain as an imported library. Okay, or not chain as an imported, because it is already pre-built in LangChain. Okay, you can basically take use of this chaining method in order to like chain your user prompt, okay, your user query, your user like agenda, your user anything, right? So user question, user prompt, user, the other AI agent, okay, the string output and everything, the chain will be used as an operator to connect with your large language model. That's it, just understand this. Okay, so basically pipeline. Now similarly, when it comes to memory, the large language model, right, a transformer based model, it does not have any memory, right? You are explicitly going to feed the memory, okay, from this, again, from with the help of LangChain. Someone has actually written the memory logic, which is like contain the conversational buffer memory. Okay, we are supposed to use, like, import that from the memory class. Okay, we are going to use the conversation buffer memory as a method, and inside this we are supposed to pass our entire thing. We are supposed to pass our prompt, our large language model, our question, our other AI agent, so that every conversation that from this I will be doing with my application, okay, with my already constructed application with the help of LangChain, okay, with the inclusion of this conversation buffer memory. Okay, this is actually the other thing, right, provided by the LangChain ecosystem, so that my application will have an entire previous conversation context, okay, so that it will not hallucinate. Okay, so all these things will be provided by LangChain. Now, when it comes to retrieval augmented generation, again, retrieval augmented generation, I am going to take the entire 1 week class for this one. Okay, so I am just like avoiding this part, so I will be coming into this later, because RAG is basically my area of expertise, and I don't want to just go and just tell it in one go like the many instructors do. Okay, I don't want to fool you. Okay, so RAG I will going to take it later, but RAG I am telling you that what is basically RAG. The RAG system is basically, let's say that if you have some set of a document, okay, the document may contain some textual data, some image data, the document may contain some video link as well. Okay, and let's say someone comes and asks you that I want to make a system, I want to make, let's say, a very interactive AI application, so that my user could able to like fetch the information from the database, talk to my agent, translate my agent, and then let's say make a graph from it. Okay, so like I can make everything right from just by retrieving the document from my knowledge base. Okay, and after retrieving, that retrieval has to save into some kind of a computer readable language. Okay, so that it is going to read the numbers, like into the embeddings format, we call it embeddings. Okay, so that whenever the user is going to ask question, the user question is, let's say, in the English language. For machine, in order to understand the English language, it has to convert it into the token has to be converted into the embedding, that embedding has to go into my, let's say, vector database. There is another concept which is like vector database. It is going to like go to the similarity check, and after doing the similarity check, it is like with your actually, let's say, a pre-stored database, okay, into your database. Based on the user query, it is going to semantically check it and going to respond to you. Okay, so RAG is basically very diversified way of, very diversified way in like talking these things into a generative AI thing. Okay, because for it has to be a separate lecture. That is why I'm going to take this RAG as a separate lecture, but understand that it is also a part of this generative AI curriculum, right? And the fifth part is basically the tools. Okay, so what is tools, what is agent, what is LangGraph, we are going to understand everything, right? So tools is basically, let's say, a LLM, right? You have, let's say, a LLM. So from this, let's say that it is going to do a lot of things, right? So let's say any large language model, right? Just understand that this large language model frameworked with LangChain. Okay, which means that it has given instruction, and it has connected to the chains, and it has connected to the output parser, everything. Okay, so let's say that this is the large language model, and let's say that there is actually a teacher. Okay, that it is going to act as a teacher, it is going to act as a booking system. Okay, it is going to act as a medical AI doctor. Okay, and it is going to act as, let's say, a business expert, right? Now let's say that based on any question that user is basically asking, right, any question that user is basically asking, so that ask question has to feed into the LLM. Okay, and then these are basically act as a tool. Okay, this is, let's say, a tool one. Okay, I'm just giving a layman definition of tool. Okay, you are going to understand the tool in later part. So let's say tool 3, let's say tool 4. Okay, and let's say whether the user is basically asking to any this LLM or AI agent part, right? Now based on your question, if the question is basically sounding like that, it has to be probably like go into the AI doctor, which means that AI doctor is more suitable, because your question is mostly towards that I have some issue in my pancreas, so can you suggest me, and these are basically the tested report. Okay, so these things we are actually feeding it into the LLM, right? So LLM will need to intellectual enough in order to call this tool that okay, maybe this LLM will tell that maybe I am not a very good expert in order to give you a good suggestion. So maybe I can call the tool number 3 because tool number 3 is basically mostly like trained on or mostly know about the medical thesis part. Okay, mostly like let's say have a conversation with a lot of doctors. Okay, so maybe tool 3 has a better set of knowledge representation to your question rather than tool 2, tool 1 and tool 4. Okay, so it is going to call the tool 3. So this is basically a tool. Okay, similarly let's say that if you're going to ask a question as a booking agent, okay, so that booking agent is more sounding like this one, like tool 2. The tool 2 is going to call right via the LLM. Similarly this one and this one, right? So in this way, this is basically what is called a tool. Okay, similarly when it comes to agent, right, so agent is means that inside the LangChain there is something called as agent. So agent in inside the agent we are going to use the react agent, which means the reasoning and action agent, which means that my LLM is like a good enough in order to reason by itself. Okay, so there is no human intervention loop. Okay, which means that it will going to like reason by itself, correct by itself and call the agent by itself. Okay, so it does not need any permission from the user. Okay, so it will going to act as a react agent. Okay, where let's say it is a thinking. Okay, it is based on the thinking, it is like acting means like calling a tool, and then it will going to use as an observer as well. Okay, so user is not going to do anything, your agent is properly going to fulfill your path. Okay, or fulfill your seat, right? And in the advanced section there is actually a LangGraph, we will going to cover it later. Okay, so from this you will get a proper idea that what is basically a LangChain. Okay, that LangChain is basically open source framework. Okay, open source framework. LangChain is basically an open source framework which is using the many different LLM in order to build any application. Okay, in order to build any application. So it is basically open source framework, or let's say ecosystem. Okay, which will going to help your application to survive, survive like in a very stable format. Okay, so in this way, so it is going to provide all these application tool, libraries, functions, models, right, each and everything which is actually needed in order to let your LLM model, the large language model, okay, the big powerful large language model which does not have like, which is basically the stateless, okay, like which does not have any memory, another thing. Okay, with the help of these kind of a tool, okay, which is like developed by some of those developer, okay, which contain a lot more extra different AI agent, sub models, other functioning part, other extra functions. Okay, help your LLM agent to make to so that your application, right, is going to use this the large language model in a more smoother manner. Okay, in a more, let's say, your application is going to get a good response with a better precision. Okay, just by like attaching these kind of a thing into your LLM model with the help of using a LangChain. Okay, so we are going to master it into the next lecture. Okay, so I hope that you are basically get it that what I am supposed to tell. Okay, one more thing like I want to tell, let me just go to this LangChain part. Okay, so if I go to LangChain library, right, LangChain docs, so you will see that there is something called a LangChain, which is like LangChain, LangGraph, deep stage and langsmith. Okay, so let's say that if I'm going to make the LangChain, inside the LangChain you will see a lot more thing. Okay, so this is basically a good documentation and I'm supposed to use this. Okay, so if I go to the LangChain, it will going to take you about what is basically the quick start. Okay, see, I am going to give more than whatever it is actually needed in the industry based process. Okay, so that you by yourself can basically try to make a good set of project, like you have a, let's say, a good set of problem understanding with the help of LangChain as a framework. You can basically try to make a good set of product. Okay, with the inclusion of LLM connected with your LangChain framework. Okay, so we are going to understand about the core component, which is like agent part, the model part, the messaging tool, short-term memory streaming, each and every part. Okay, retrieval, context engineering, MCP and other thing, right? Like in the next lecture I am going to hop into the Google Colab implementation. Okay, and I'm going to give you the brief introduction. If I go back and let's say LangChain, right, if I go to the images section here, you are going to see this thing, right? See, LangChain provides everything. LangChain provides chaining. It has a many different agent. It has a document loader. It has many different large language model. It has a vector storage. It has a prompting. So it will going to do everything. That's I wanted to tell you, right? That LangChain is basically a kind of an ecosystem, right? Which is like able to use in order to connect your large language model with your vector database, large language model, so that you can actually like pass this document, feed this document into the large language model so that you can make a good chatbot application. You will be having a different chaining. So with the help of chaining, you are going to attach each and every part of it, right? With the help of good prompting as an instructor, you can actually like use as an instructor to your large language model, so that it will going to give you a good and precise answer. Similarly, it has many different pre-built agent also, right? So this is basically the entire framework. Okay, then we will going to understand everything, don't worry about it. So this is what I wanted to tell about the LangChain. So I think I have taken like more than an our video just to like make you understand about this LangChain framework, okay? Because I really wanted to have a very clear cut idea about these things, right? So that you can able to get this thing. So yeah, so again, like let's move to another lecture where I have already like I see that there are no other libraries that other than whatever I have used, because I have used the most frequently and most used libraries in all of those industries. Okay, so I am going to give you a proper implementation part personally, so that you yourself try to be like create your own application. First, my agenda is that first I will go into the Google Colab implementation. Okay, try to use the most frequently used LangChain libraries, and once you understand these things, okay, because that thing is very confusing. See, I'll tell you that most of the people confuse a lot, right? Because they directly go into the LangChain documentation, or they directly enroll into the generative AI section, generative AI course, and other than understanding about the LangChain, the people start bragging and people start telling some other direction, like some other thing. The main problem in generative AI is that people are not even aware that what problem he or she is actually catering. Okay, the first thing is that you should know about your problem. The second thing is that you should know that how you and which framework, which tool you are supposed to use to solve this problem, right? So that is why in LangChain, inside the LangChain, suppose if you're actually using the tool as a LangChain, then inside this tool, what are the other function? What are the other necessary imports? Because there are thousands of imports. Are you supposed to use this thousands of import in your project? Of course not, right? You are supposed to use only that kind of a import, okay? Only that function, only that agent, okay? Which is like necessary at the very topmost level in order to build your application. Other you can actually like use as a R&D part. Okay, you can go and like whenever you have a free time, you go by yourself, right? But in order to make a fully system level application, right, you need to know that what is actually using it into the industry part, right? That where are actually like people struggling. Okay, how can I actually solve this problem? So I will going to walk you through in my Colab implementation. I am going to walk you through about each and every section, and once you understand even like these things, okay, these are the main core ingredient, right? Believe me, you are going to like never facing any problem in LangChain part. This much I can guarantee you. Okay, so in the next section we are going to understand the few basic libraries import in the LangChain part, and then you are set up to call yourself a generative AI engineer, because you will be very confident by then. Okay, so thank you again. Let's meet to the another set of video. Okay, so the next video will be my Colab implementation. Thank you.